views and opinions expressed by callers, guests, and hosts do not necessarily reflect those of the Black Talk Radio Network and Black Talk Media Project. Black Talk Radio is new black media for the new millennium.
Today is Monday, August 14th. Ready to bring some information to you. I am your co-host, Brother Tommy, and sitting here with Brother Rio. Brother Rio, you with me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. How you feeling today?
Oh, I'm feeling pretty good. How you feeling, my brother?
Feeling pretty good, man, for a Monday, starting off the work week. But I trust everybody had a productive day and it leads to a productive week. And, I think we felt like last week the topic was pretty much left open. Seems like people had questions. They wanted to chime in, and, we needed to kind of further explain some of the information that we went over today. So looking forward to, clearing up some information today, and also getting down to the topic in the news that, everybody seems to be talking about right now. So I think we're going to have a powerful show today, brother, so I'm feeling good. Feeling good.
Sir, I feel you. And I think it's a good situation for us to be able to, like you said, clear up everything, kind of connect the dots a little bit more, especially when people first start hearing about the seven souls of man. The concept itself is mind-boggling because we've had so many different things taught to us, especially through monotheistic religions throughout the years, being able to grasp what the ancestors said and what they meant and how those things turn into the religious concepts that we have today. Because John Henry Clark always says, or it's another heavy brother, I'm going to put it on John Henry, that, the religions that we know are just a periphery of African spiritual science. So, being able to go all the way back to the root in some cases and know what the ancients said is very mind-boggling, amazing, and makes people really want to learn more. So we're going to try to connect the dots just a little bit heavier today.
I agree with you, brother. And I'd just like to add on that it's not only what the ancients said, it's what the ancients meant and what they based their writings and their teachings on, as well as how, let's just say, different cultures have taken and they have perverted the information. And by pervert, I mean changing up the information to fit their own agenda and not really explaining the true meaning or the source, as well as what the source was talking about and how it was interpreted by the ancients. So you have people who make analogies or they feel at liberty to make allegories that speak to their own agenda, but they don't truly give people the information of what it actually meant then and how they're comparing it to the message they're trying to give and provide presently. So I think that leads to a lot of confusion and downright deception in some cases. But, this is just information to make people aware that you can't take everything at face value, and it bears further research. And if you're willing to put that research in, the answers are out there. So it is what it is at the end of the day. We're not trying to offend anybody. We're not trying to down any people's belief or faith in whatever system. We're just letting people know that the information does go deeper, and, if you choose to go deeper, it will be rewarded, because you can never be led astray or lied to, or you can, spot out people who aren't genuine and sincere in their messages and what they're trying to relate to the people.
Absolutely. And also we can, what another thing that I like, especially a part of the seven souls of man, is pointing out how we have to quit anthropomorphizing the concept of the Christ or these spiritual concepts and principles. And instead of, there were no gods in ancient Kemet in our ancient lands. You know what I'm saying? That was not a terminology that we used. You know, when our ancestors spoke of things, they were talking about principles, concepts, elements, creative principles and sources of creative energy. And so we have to also deal with the anthropomorphizing or bringing these spiritual concepts to physical concepts, and acting as if that they're talking about a carnalized physical person walking on earth who has the ability to be the Christ and to do all these wonderful things, when we have to understand the concept is meant for us, for every individual has to bear that cross. You feel me? So, we'll definitely get into that.
Oh, yeah, brother. Yeah, because, it wasn't meant to be taken literally. They were analogies or allegories, stories to teach those principles. And as you grow in the information and understanding, you were brought into the fold of more scientific and higher level understanding. But in the beginning, they were just allegories to relate to everyday things that you encountered in nature and that you could understand and you interacted with. They weren't meant to be taken literally. But that's just one of the issues that have occurred. Yeah. So yeah, I feel you on that, brother. I feel you on that.
Yes, sir, brother. So, but what we're gonna do first, party people, we're gonna start out with what's going on in the news. We that it's definitely a conversation everybody's talking about, that this protest that happened in Charlottesville the other day, and this right wing group and protesters fussing and fighting out at the park. That's an issue that we definitely want to touch on, and we need to deal with, because I think everybody can see, or should be able to see by now, that there's a lot of enmity out there. There's a lot of hate out there, and white folks specifically is ready to act out on some strong aggression and some strong hate that always has been there, that never went away. Black folks just falsely believe that it went away, caught up on a lot of the games that Europeans have played. But hey, here we are again. What's your take on it, Brother Rio?
Well, I agree with your sentiments. The more things change, the more they stay the same. And when times are good, we always feel the pressure. Although it's not publicized as much in the media, we always have the same stories since times immemorial. But as the economic woes of the country continue to rise, the media propagates more propaganda for what we feel is an agenda to the end game. And, certain articles become prevalent within the media to make us feel a certain kind of way, to make us react a certain kind of way, and to pretty much not remind us, but, I guess just to inform or keep in the front of everybody's mental consciousness that the more things change, the more they stay the same, because it's the same old fight. It's the same old fight over the same old issues. But what I do have is an article. It's a little lengthy, but it kind of goes over the different perspectives that the media would have everybody concentrate on. Before I go into reading, brother, did you have anything that you wanted to add, or a statement that you wanted to kick in?
Yeah. I wanted to add prior to you moving forward, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to read, because I know you're about to bring some good information. But I'm just really struck right now, looking at where the situation is in terms of how unprepared our community is, our people are, and how organized and prepared they are. You can go on YouTube and watch videos across the board of them training, being well armed, having the proper food in case something occurs, having tactical units to handle issues if they come about, and just to know that this hate, these people are directed towards, no matter what they say in terms of their discontent with the government and things of that nature. they're definitely preparing to take their anger and their frustration out and their hate on people of African descent. So before, I just wanted to just express how it's just alarming that more people of our community aren't alarmed, aren't saying to themselves, hold on, we need to start coming together. We need to have some situations and some plannings together to where we can protect ourselves, to where we can feed ourselves, where we can make sure that our people have a place to go on land or whatever. It just feels like it's extremely imperative that Black folks start turning inward towards each other, inside themselves, and start linking, because it just feels like they're really at a point to where they are far advanced than where we are, based upon their hate, of course, but they're far advanced in terms of survival. So we really need to pick it up as a people. But that's just where I'm at, brother. I wanted to just throw a little vent out there, brother, before you got started. But just, I just feel like it's imperative, and we really need to open our eyes and really see what's going on. It's that time.
I would be in complete agreement, brother. And the only thing I would add is, is the way that we choose to prepare is going to be, it needs to be strategic, and that is where the unity comes in, because, as you said, they are, as far as technology, as far as resources, as far as unity, they come together. They can put aside their differences. They can pretty much view anything outside of themselves as an enemy worthy to be descended upon, controlled, or eliminated. And they've shown that throughout their history. So we are up against it. It's a pattern that has repeated constantly, and it's also evident within our nature that we are very accommodating, because we don't think like the Europeans or the Tamahus. That's just not our culture. We weren't made like that. We were made to be communal. We were made to be, accepting. And even with this European or Tamahu programming, we still cling to that base, and we turn on each other before we turn on other communities. So that really needs to be addressed, because it really hampers and interferes with our ability to plan and strategize on how to get other people off of our own community and then deal with each other.
Yes.
So is there any last statements you want to say, brother, before I start reading?
No, come on, bring it, brother.
All right. This is an article that's in the Washington Post, and the title of it is "One Dead as Car Strikes Crowds Amid Protests of White Nationalists Gathering in Charlottesville. 2 police die in helicopter crash." Now, under the caption, they have some video of
and Brother Rio, let me say something real fast. I know you got to be honest with me. Now, why they keep throwing in the 2 dying in the helicopter crash? Knowing that is totally unrelated. You see how they shoot in the fan?
It's funny you say that, brother, because, I actually meant to edit that out. And I was going to skip right over that part in the article, because I don't, that is very curious,
And don't get me wrong, Brother Rio, we ain't, we don't appreciate the loss of life of anyone. We ain't making fun of the loss of anyone's life, but to connect that to what happened on the ground is just them stroking the fan a little bit heavier. That's all I was trying to point out.
I agree. They went as far as to give the names of the people who were involved in, the accident, and, a simple statement that, they were trying to help out with the riot. But, after that, they just kind of move on. So it's kind of like that could have been addressed in a separate article. But I was wondering that same thing. And if any of the family, can enlighten me as to, why they think that could be included in there, feel free to post your comments or come on in and let your comments be heard on air. But the video the caption of the video says state of emergency declared after white nationalist gathering in Charlottesville, which was new to me. I was unaware that it was declared, in fact, a state of emergency. Were you aware of that?
Yes, I heard it on the news.
Okay. Well, I'll speak to that point after we read the article and as we get further into it. But that was just very interesting to me. But the article starts out: Charlottesville, chaos and violence turned to tragedy Saturday as hundreds of white nationalists, neo-Nazis, and Ku Klux Klan members planning to stage what they described as their largest rally in decades to take America back, clashed with counter-protesters in the streets, and a car plowed into crowds, leaving one person dead and 19 others injured. Governor Terry McAfee, who had declared a state of emergency, said at an evening news conference that he had a message for all the white supremacists and the Nazis who came to Charlottesville today. Go home. You are not wanted in this great commonwealth. Maurice Jones, Charlottesville's city manager, looked stricken as he spoke. Hate came to our town today in a way that we had feared, but we had never really let ourselves imagine would, he said. State and local officials declined to take reporters' questions. In an emergency meeting Saturday evening, the Charlottesville City Council voted unanimously to give police the power to enact a curfew or otherwise restrict assembly to protect public safety. Video recorded at the scene of the car crash shows a 2010 gray Dodge Challenger accelerating into crowds on a pedestrian mall, sending bodies flying, and then reversing at high speed, hitting yet more people. Witnesses said the street was filled with people opposed to the white nationalists who had come to town bearing Confederate flags and anti-Semitic epithets. A 32-year-old woman was killed, according to police, who said they were investigating the crash as a criminal homicide. The driver of the Challenger, James Alex Fields Jr., 20 years old, of Ohio, was arrested and charged with 1 count of second-degree murder, 3 counts of malicious wounding, and 1 count of hit and run, attended failure to stop with injury, police said. He is being held without bail and is scheduled to be arraigned Monday. 3 other men were arrested in connection with violence earlier in the day. The FBI field office in Richmond and the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Western District of Virginia said late Saturday they have opened a civil rights investigation into the deadly car crash.
There they go with that civil rights again, investigations. How far do these civil rights investigations go? Go ahead, brother.
Right. Yeah, but the rabbit hole gets deeper, brother. The violence and deaths in Charlottesville strike at the heart of American law and justice. I'm sorry, it's not a funny matter, but that comment was kind of humorous to me. Their heartfelt concern of the American law and justice. U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions said in a statement, when such actions arise from racial bigotry and hatred, they betray our core values and cannot be tolerated. Records show Fields last lived in Maumee, Ohio, about 15 miles southwest of Toledo. Hold on, brother. Waiting on the computer to scroll down. Fields' father was killed by a drunk driver a few months before the boy's birth, according to an uncle who spoke on the condition of anonymity. His father left him money that the uncle kept in a trust until Fields reached adulthood. When he turned 18, he demanded his money, and that was the last I had any contact with him, the uncle said. Fields, he said, grew up mostly in northern Kentucky, where he'd been raised by a single mother, who was a paraplegic. The uncle, who saw Fields mostly at family gatherings, described his nephew as not really friendly, more subdued. Angela Taylor, a spokeswoman for the University of Virginia Medical Center, said 19 others were brought to the hospital in the early afternoon after the car barreled through the pedestrian mall. 5 were in critical condition as of Saturday evening. Another 14 people were hurt in street brawls, city officials said. Earlier, police evacuated the downtown park as rally-goers and counter-protesters traded blows and hurled bottles and chemical irritants at one another, putting an end to the noon rally before it officially began.
Hold on, Rio. Chemical irritants.
Sir.
Do they give a source of that? Who brought the chemical irritants? Who was throwing them? How chemical irritants get there?
I do not know. They don't bother to elaborate. So I believe we can, intuitively speculate which one of the sides that had the conflict had the chemical, quote unquote, irritants.
Right. And that's also another reason why you can say why they don't want to name the person specifically. And that's another thing that black folk who are listening, or people, melanated people of color, need to be thinking, okay, you have this militia group out here and they have a chemical irritant with them. That's the main thing people should be thinking right there. Go ahead, my brother.
Yes, sir. Because, to me, it stands to reason that one of these groups was expecting conflict.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about the two parties, which party is more likely to be organized to the point of bringing chemical irritants?
Absolutely.
Through financial resources or simple, just being able to obtain those particular kind of resources.
And Brother Rio,
Mm-hmm.
and look at the disadvantage it puts to the people who do not know that they have a chemical irritant. One, aren't prepared for if they did have a chemical irritant. Two, and what could they do to protect themselves from it? So look at the disadvantage you are in when you're not properly prepared as a cohesive unit, especially when other people are preparing as a cohesive unit.
Overstood, brother. And just to add on to that point, most of the protesters who are organized within our community are usually of the opinion that nonviolent protest is the best form of protest from our own community. So we are being taught to protest these injustices that we feel from a peaceful perspective. So, even if we did have access to those particular kind of quote unquote irritants and other, resources to handle conflicts, would we even use them on a mass scale because of the people that we have in position currently that organize the protests or the counter protests, whichever the case may be. What are your thoughts on that, brother?
Well, my thoughts are we ain't got no business protesting no how. So, protest what? And we already know what they're doing and what they've been doing and what they plan on continuing to do. So at that point, there is no protest. The only thing that we can do is come together and create what our response to what they're doing is. Protesting ain't gonna do us no good. So, instead of protesting, we should be planning. That's the best way I can put it.
Overstood, brother. But of course, we have people who have different thoughts and opinions as to the proper way to get to solutions. And some of those people think that protesting is a viable option. So, do you have any thoughts as to the way those particular groups are trying to prepare, to protest?
My thoughts are basically you have these baby John Lewises out here. I understand what you're asking me, what you're saying, that you have these brothers out here that believe that we live in a democracy, and that things are getting better and that there is an equality of the races moving in our direction, and that the democratic process and the nonviolent, politically correct process is what is the best direction for us to go as a people. And I may not get there with you, but we will get there one day. I feel you. You have those people out there. I believe that that's ridiculous. I believe they need to wake up. You know that, and that's why these type of brothers and sisters. Hey, if y'all want to go out there and protest, put your life on the line. Let these white folks hit you up over the head. That's your choice. But it's been proven that doesn't work, especially when you look at the plans that they have in terms of domination of your race and your people. This going out there protesting and asking folks to give us this or that, it does not work. So that's what I would say to people who think of it from that perspective. It don't work.
Understood, brother. And we can, we've already laid some groundwork, that could lead one to that particular conclusion. But we probably gonna have to lay that out again at a later date. But I understand, and I definitely see where you're coming from.
Sir.
It says earlier, police evacuated the downtown park of rally goers, and counter protesters traded blows and hurled bottles of chemical irritants again at one another, putting an end to the noon rally before it officially began. Despite the decision to quash the rally, clashes continued on side streets throughout downtown, including the pedestrian mall at Water and 4th Streets, where the challengers slammed into counter-protesters and 2 other cars in the early afternoon, sending bystanders running and screaming. I am heartbroken that a life has been lost here, Charlottesville Mayor Michael Signer, Democratic, said in a tweet. I urge all people of goodwill go home. Elected leaders in Virginia and elsewhere urged peace, blasting the white supremacist views on display in Charlottesville as ugly. But President Trump, known for his rapid-fire tweets, remained silent throughout the morning. It was after 1 p.m. when he weighed in, writing on Twitter, "We all must be united and condemn all that hate stands for. There is no place for this kind of violence in America. Let's come together as one." In brief remarks at a late afternoon news conference in New Jersey to discuss veterans' health care, Trump said he was following the events in Charlottesville closely. The hate and the division must stop, and must stop right now, Trump said, without specifically mentioning white nationalists or their views. We condemn in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence on many sides. Former Ku Klux Klan leader David Duke, a Trump supporter who was in Charlottesville on Saturday, quickly replied, I would recommend you take a good look in the mirror and remember it was white Americans who put you in the presidency, not radical leftists, he wrote. Asked by a reporter in New Jersey whether he wanted the support of white nationalists, dozens of whom wore red Make America Great Again hats during the Charlottesville riots, Trump did not respond. Even as crowds began to thin Saturday afternoon, the town remained unsettled and on edge. Onlookers were deeply shaken at the pedestrian mall, where ambulances had arrived to treat those injured by the car. Jan Williams, 22, was among the counter-protesters in the street, chanting, Black Lives Matter, and whose streets? Our streets. The marchers blocked traffic, but Williams said drivers weren't annoyed. Instead, she said they waved or honked in support. So when she heard a car engine rev up and saw the people in front of her dodging a moving car, she didn't know what to think. I saw the car hit bodies, legs in the air, she said. You try to grab the people closest to you and take shelter. Williams and friend George Halliday ducked into a shop with an open door and called their mothers. An hour later, the two were still visibly upset. I just saw shoes on the road, Halliday, 20 years old, said. It all happened in 2 seconds. Saturdays unite the rally Unite the Right rally was meant to protest the planned removal of a statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee. The city of Charlottesville voted to remove the statue earlier this year, but it remains in Emancipation Park, formerly known as Lee Park, pending a judge's ruling expected later this month.
Can I say something to you, Brother Rio?
Yes, sir.
Also, particularly, I think with these Europeans stepping up now, talking about that we're going to eradicate these monuments. I think that is a strategic part of creating confusion and destabilization. They are very aware that you have these militia groups out here in huge numbers, swelling in huge numbers. And I'm gonna read a little information that I have a little later, but swelling in huge numbers. And so you had now all of a sudden have the, different states, districts, and counties talking about the removal of these monuments to the Confederate. Why all of a sudden? Why is it a big deal now? You understand what I'm saying? So
I'm in agreement, brother. I'm in agreement, and I think I believe that point can be addressed, as you said, as we continue on, and as you read your statements. I believe we can tie all this in together.
Yeah. Are we in agreement that it's a design plan?
It most definitely, sir. I mean, that's what we. I think that's a central thing that people are understanding about us, is that we connect dots and we show how these are organized plans. These are planned out, and it's not just fly by the seat of your pants plans. These are plans that are being orchestrated. So they've been thought out over time. Mm-hmm. And when the timing is right, that's when they implement strategically the plans that they have on books.
Yes, sir.
So I'm in complete agreement, brother.
Hold on, Brother Rio, before you continue with the reading. Brother Scotty's got a comment. Go ahead and kick it at him, Scotty.
Yeah, here's my comment. Because I don't want y'all to say that I was part of somebody's plan, and we just keeping it real and open. And I appreciate everybody's view, but I want to disagree with you, because in Charlottesville there was a child that started that petition. This was in a public park where people play. That all the taxpayers, everybody in that little town, in that community, this little girl was the one who said that it's not right that I, as a U.S. citizen, let's look at it from that child's perspective. I'm a U.S. citizen, and this man tried to overthrow the United States of America, and he stood for slavery and racism and terrorism, and we see how these terrorists flock to it. I mean, imagine it from her perspective that she's playing, can't go to this park or feels uncomfortable at this park because you have a monument to white supremacy. So that was that teenager initiating that move. Now, after we get through, I put it on the back burner. After I get through with, all the other abolitionists, and we pull this off in Washington, D.C., which is going to happen. Okay, in terms of our fundraiser, we're almost at the goal, so we still got like 3 days. So after that, though, I'm going to be challenging under the 14th Amendment, using their laws and their courts. I understand that, but I'm a taxpayer. Our a family-owned property. Lots of people own property around here that's not white, and we have one of those statues at the courthouse, and we have one of those monuments to Confederate soldiers at the place where we go to vote. Now, these are strategically placed, and they was placed there in the 1920s, in the 30s, after Woodrow Wilson set a signal that neo-Confederates, or former Confederates, if we want to go back to the 1920s, that, hey, you're allowed to terrorize black people and non-white people. It's just open season on them. The federal government isn't going to devote any resources to defending you. And yes, you can put up these monuments to white supremacy in the enslavement of the people they enslaved, and just all that stands for, and make them as U.S. citizens pay for the monument, because we paying for those. So I just have this thing that, as a person showing some self-respect, that I should willingly pay for those things. Okay, so there's going to be no state actors or no other organization behind me. I have contacted different organizations looking for some legal help to challenge these monuments in North Carolina under the 14th Amendment. A lot of people look at that 14th Amendment as only applying to if you're born here, you're a citizen. You can declare your citizenship or not, but you're born in under their jurisdiction, under their power, and what have you, until that situation can be turned around. But for the time being, therefore, under the 14th Amendment, it talks specifically about if you are a Confederate, a former Confederate, you can't hold any kind of office in the United States government, in the federal government. If you're a public official and you express any kind of support, lend any kind of aid to the Confederacy, you can't serve. This is law. This is law that's not being applied. And so when I file my lawsuit, however it goes down, whoever assists me on that lawsuit, because I don't think it's right that I'm a descendant of an American revolutionary who don't have a statue, and the black people who fought in the American Revolution from North Carolina, from this area, don't have a statue in front of the courthouse. And there's a statue to a country that don't even exist that tried to, tell me, I'll shut up. I'm rambling, but tell me, dude, what's those two cities that the United States dropped nuclear weapons on, bombs on?
Hiroshima
and Nagasaki. Do you think they got monuments to those bombers and what have you that dropped that bomb on them? And I ended it with that.
Okay. I feel you, but okay, go ahead. Rio, you got a response? I want to see if you want to tackle the U.S. citizenship.
Well, yeah, Brother Scotty, first of all, I want to commend you and thank you for your activism. And I in no way meant to belittle or irritate you by my statements or my perspective. And I was not referring to you or pretty much anybody within our own community when I was stating that this is all by a planned or by design. What I was really referring to is that the timing of it and us being classified as U.S. citizens, because I'm pretty sure that young lady is not the first person to complain about that statue or that monument or get a petition or, things of that nature. But why is the timing now when the people in legislation or the powers that be decide that, okay, well, this is something that we're going to move forward upon, as well as, granting permits and the right to protest by the Ku Klux Klan and white nationalists and things of that nature, knowing that there's going to be a friction. Without a doubt, there's going to be hardcore friction. Now, they are within their rights to protest, as we are to counter-protest, but, it's just the timing of it, as well as your other statements, concerning how through the 14th Amendment, nobody who has these particular kind of ties is supposed to hold any kind of office. But in this very article, we have David Duke, who has known associations with the Ku Klux Klan and is a white supremacist and is a Donald Trump supporter outwardly. But him, as well as countless others, hold offices within Congress. So these are details that we need to take note of and pay attention to, because that let us know that either we aren't a party to the Constitution as we think we are, or they're playing by a different set of rules, because they hold themselves, from my point of view, in a different status.
Absolutely. And that status is also okay. You go ahead. My bad. I'm sorry. I don't want to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
And also that status is revealed in the manner in which the authorities deal with European gangs or militias coming together with guns, and how they would deal with a black group of people going to a park with guns. So if we all know that if black folk got together and went to a park and had AKs and assault rifles and everything you could think of, they would have that place surrounded and they'd be looking to subdue the entire park. But that this is not what they know, that these Europeans are heavily armed. They know that they're going to have guns, chemical irritants and all these things, but yet they still issue them a permit.
And they were allowing them to move forward with the rally. If we show up with any kind of items that could be perceived as a threat, because we were anticipating counter protesters, whether they be KKK or whoever, they would shut down the rally immediately. It wouldn't even get to riot status because they wouldn't let us congregate anywhere near where we wanted to be. They will make us disperse, and they will definitely take note of who has what. So, I mean, again, we see a disparaging way that, if you want to call it justice, law, it's just the way that the powers that be who are in power enact their regulators. Mm-hmm. They give some people privilege, others they do not, because to them we're all subject. And as we continue, you know, I'm going to kind of bring out or highlight some things that are coming down the pipe that is going to eliminate all that anyway, where it ain't going to matter, you know, your class, well, to a certain extent, but it won't matter the color of your skin or your pretty much your views and your opinions, because, you know, what they have ultimately planned is going to affect everybody in the United States that you know, consider themselves a quote unquote U.S. citizen, and we need to really strategize about, you know, some other options and get out from under these labels that they are giving us. You know, American, African American, Black, U.S. citizen also being one of those. But you know, we can go to that later on.
Yeah, Brother Rio, and one more thing I want to say also in response to what Brother Scotty was saying in terms of, I feel what he's saying, that average ordinary day people can set it off and have set it off and gets the ball and chain rolling based upon certain levels of injustice that they experience. But all I was trying to say to that event, the atmosphere was already created by the powers that be. You know what I'm saying? The atmosphere of allowing a certain people who they know think a certain way, certain people they know who are amassing guns, who are training in the woods. They have a full understanding of what's going on, who are the hate groups, where they're at. So they set the stage, and then, you know, boom, let it happen and step back, and then, you know, let everybody else hash it out from there. But they set the stage for the environment for it to occur. And sometimes human emotions don't allow it to occur, and it can be overlooked. But the stage was set, you know, because that's what they want to happen. They know what those folks was up to when they went in there with them guns to protect the monuments. And on top of that, Brother Rio, how come ain't nobody mentioning? How come the police ain't talking about that they checked these guns, that they made sure these cats had the right to carry? If there was black men doing that, they'd have had them brothers on the ground at gunpoint. How come we're not talking about that?
It never would have got to that point. It never would have even been a possibility of a riot occurring, because they would have quarreled all that initially, you know, and dispersed the crowds, and y'all go home. Ain't gonna be no rally today, you know. Period.
I agree. And let me say one more thing, Brother Rio, and I don't want this to be taken the wrong way either, because, you know, sometimes I notice that our people will get behind issues that really ain't gonna matter one way or another in terms of what the bigger goal is getting this European off your back, in terms of getting back to the original way of your people and self-determination. You got to get this sucker off your back. That is the ultimate goal. And that's just like me. Brother Rio, going over here to Stone Mountain and you already see, what they got over, the monument that they got on Stone Mountain. Is my energy best served to be hollering and screaming about what these Europeans got on Stone Mountain, even though I feel, Brother Scotty, my tax dollars is going to pay for it. But is it worth any of my energy? They don't had it up there for the last 50, 60 years. They don't beat, raped, and rob my people for 200 something years, 300. No, I mean, I'm talking about just in this country. When we can go back 2,000 years of brutality. So I just think we got to quit focusing on the wrong things. The fact that they got some Confederate monuments, okay, we already know what they think. We know what kind of people we're dealing with. Let's turn our energy, like I said, again, back to us, back to planning, preparation, nationhood, our status in this country. Let's start focusing on real things. Are we really U.S. citizens? And why would we even want to classify ourselves as that? And are we really even that? You know what I'm saying? There's bigger fish we need to be frying, in my opinion. That's what I'm trying to say, Brother Rio.
I agree with you, but I also agree with Brother Scotty as well, because I believe in his efforts and the way that he is going about things. Him and the other people who are involved in the abolitionist movement. They're trying to implement change through the proper channels, which is law. We are supposed to have remedy through law. That's what we're supposed to have. And we're supposed to have access to that through the justice and the court systems. So, trying to implement what we are supposed to have remedy, to me, that's being an honor, because, we're trying to handle things in a civilized manner, which is how men of nations are supposed to deal with each other. Mm-hmm. But I also see your point that, they claim that we are under their nation, but they don't treat us like all the other nationals. Well, they're not even nationals. I'm not even going to call them that. They're not treating us with the respect that we're supposed to have being indigenous to this land.
Real talk.
And the efforts that we put forth, despite all of the atrocities that have been placed upon us, to remain in honor and try to come to some kind of understanding so that we can live together in a peaceful manner through contracts that have been laid down and going through those channels. And constantly it's them who are out of honor, blaming it on us, putting us in situations of oppression to where we really don't have any choices but to go against laws that work in their favor because of the way that they enact them and the way that they enforce them. So, I applaud Brother Scotty, because I think through going through these proper channels, the more that we do it and we see that we are not going to get justice, the more that's going to make people willing to come to the table and come up with another strategy, which is what you were just saying, or ask the proper questions to come to that conclusion that this ain't working. Although it's been long enough for me and you, there's other people out there that may need some more convincing and some more time. But I think these are the times where experiences are going to be had to where, we ain't going to have no choice but to, if we're going to continue to be productive, in this nation that we're going to have to, build and come together as.
Yeah. I feel you, Brother Rio, and I agree with you. I feel all brothers, because I know there's a whole bunch of really good-hearted brothers out there doing the best they can in many different endeavors to turn the situation around and to get a foothold for our people to stand on. But I'm at a point to where I think we need to do a total withdrawal, pull away, drop them like a bad habit. Take your culture, your economy, your school system, everything that we depend on you for, we're going to depend on ourselves for. How about that? We're going to drop you like a bad habit and get with this. You know what I'm saying? Remember back in the day, you could either get with that or you could get with this. We're going to get with this. And that's all I'm saying. That I think that's where I've come.
Self-determination.
Self-determination.
But I just got a little bit more. I know you got some information to bring, I just got a little bit more to read that I think is going to be important to points that we want to make later on. So I'll make this quick. A large contingent of Charlottesville police officers and Virginia State Police troopers in riot gear were stationed on side streets and at nearby barricades, but did nothing to break up the melee until about 11:40 a.m. using megaphones. Police then declared an unlawful assembly and gave a 5-minute warning to leave Emancipation Park. The worst part is that people got hurt, and the police stood by and didn't do a GD thing, said David Cooper, 70, at Stanton, Virginia. State Delegate Ted Toscano, minority leader of Virginia's House, praised the response by Charlottesville and state police. As why police did not act sooner to intervene as violence unfolded, Toscano said he could not comment, but they trained very hard for this, and it might have been that they were waiting for a more effective time to get people out of Emancipation Park, he said. By early afternoon, hundreds of rally-goers had made their way to a larger park 2 miles to the north. Duke, speaking to the crowd, said that European Americans are being ethnically cleansed within our own nation and called Saturday's events the first step toward taking America back. White nationalist leader Richard Spencer also addressed the group, urging people to disperse, but he promised they would return for a future demonstration, blaming Saturday's violence on counter-protesters. I think I'm in right there, Brother Tommy, because, that's going into the mentality of the white nationalists, which I think we pretty much have a clear understanding of, how they think, and it's definitely evident in how they act, because they definitely act like this is their country when they are, in fact, the foreign invaders.
Yeah. Usurpers of our throne, colonized us in our land.
Exactly. But I did want to highlight how the police stood by while, these protesters, which they clearly have, arsenal, be it irritants or, combat gear, some wearing bicycle and motorcycle helmets and carrying clubs, sticks, and makeshift shields.
And that's what I mean by they set the atmosphere. Exactly right there. And then you're going to have police officers who aren't going to do anything. I mean, why would they? They feel the exact same way this militia people do, and some of them are the militia. Some of them are members of the militia.
Right.
So that's what I mean by setting the atmosphere, setting the stage to allow things to happen, to create that atmosphere to where at any given time, boom, something can blow.
Well, Tommy, let me add this. By 11 a.m., several fully armed militias and hundreds of right-wing rally-goers had poured into the small downtown park that was to be the site of the rally. Counter-protesters held Black Lives Matter signs and placards expressing support for equality and love as they faced rally-goers who waved Confederate flags and posters that said, the Goem No, referring to non-Jewish people in the Jewish media, is going down. But I just wanted to highlight, by 11 a.m., several fully armed militias and hundreds of right-wing rally-goers had poured into small downtown park that was to be the site of the rally. Oh, there was
more than one militia there.
Several fully armed militias and hundreds of right-wing rally-goers versus who? Counter-protesters who held Black Lives Matter signs and placards expressing support for equality and love as they faced rally-goers who waved Confederate flags and posters that said what they said. But I just wanted to highlight the contrast in the mentality of the people who are coming to protest. because I think that's going to go into the information that you're bringing about, these militias and how they are preparing for their own agendas.
Yeah. Hold on, Bria. Let me give out the number. The number to call in if you have a question or comment is 866-510-9025. We have someone on the board. If you want to have a question or comment, hit star and unmute yourself, and I'll see that you've unmuted yourself and allow you to get your question or comment in. Brother Rio, we're going to be going to a break here in about 5 minutes, and just wanted to see if there's anything else you wanted to discuss prior to that, because what I was going to do is I got some information. I pulled up this article from the Southern Poverty Law Center, and it's speaking to, the increase of hate incidents in the country and things of that nature that I wanted to get into, because sometimes when you see the statistics and hear the numbers, then people can start getting the grasp of wow, this movement of these white folks is serious. And they're definitely moving in unison, and they are prepared to deal with black folks. And we have to really, really understand that. You know what I'm saying? I think, you get so caught up in this society by the hustle and bustle, the grind is so real. You know what I'm saying? That 30-day cycle of keeping them bills paid and traversing back and forth to a job, to where people really don't understand. If people kind of really understood where we was at, we might be in a position where we need to spend our entire day hustling to pull it together to have the things we need for the protection, food, land. We need to spend our, our time and our resources are being stolen on other things, which I know we all have to do it when we really need to be focusing on this that's coming together for real.
Agreed, brother. Did you want to? Did you have anything else that you wanted to kind of add in or chime in on and come in with your information after the break? Or did you want to kind of break it up? Or
we do have another caller on the board, caller 423 area code. You can hit star and unmute yourself if you have a question. Or he could be just listening. Area code 423. Okay, all right, you're hanging in on the board. Okay, so what we're going to do, Brother Rio, let's go ahead and go to a quick break. And then once we come back to the break, I'm gonna jump in this little article, and then we're gonna push on. Okay.
Sounds good, brother.
Okay, everyone, you are listening to the Melanated Roots Radio show on the Black Talk Radio Network.
You are tuned in to the Black Talk Radio Network. For podcasts and live program scheduling, visit us on the web at blacktalkradionetwork.com. The views and opinions expressed by callers, guests, and hosts do not necessarily reflect those of the Black Talk Radio Network and Black Talk Media Project. Black Talk Radio is new black media for the new millennium.
Okay, everybody. Welcome back to the Melanated Roots Radio show. I am your host, Brother Tommy, with Brother Rio. How you feeling right now, Brother Rio?
I'm feeling good, man. I think we're giving out some information. If you have a question or comment, please come in and let your comments be heard, or text your thoughts. We'll relay them to the listening audience, and we'll keep this thing going.
Okay, Brother Rio, I'm gonna move into this little article that I ran into, and it should give some. This is kind of pretty much what we're dealing with a little bit. It's called Quantifying Hate. The number of hate groups operating in the country in 2016 into the 2017 remained at near historic highs, rising from 892 in 2015 to 917 last year, according to the latest count by the Southern Poverty Law Center. That's about 100 fewer organizations than back in 2011, which was an all-time high. And the numbers undoubtedly understate the real level of organized hatred in America. In recent years, growing numbers of right-wing extremists operate mainly in cyberspace until, in some cases, they take action in the real world. Dylan Roof, who was convicted late last year of the racist murder of 9 black Chicago churchgoers is an example of that. He had no real-world contact with hate groups before deciding, based upon propaganda he read on the internet, that it was time to start a race war. By far, the most dramatic change was the enormous leap in anti-Muslim hate groups. They went from 34 in 2015 to 101 last year, 197% increase. But that explosion was not unexpected. Anti-Muslim hate has been expanding rapidly for more than 2 years now, driven by racial Islamic attacks, including the June mass murder of 49 people at an Orlando, Florida gay nightclub, the unrelenting propaganda of a growing circle of well-paid ideologues, and the incendiary rhetoric of Trump, his threats to ban Muslim immigration, mandate a registry of Muslims in America, and more. The Muslim bashing had consequences. Last October, 3 members of a militia-like group called the Crusaders were arrested and charged with plotting to blow up an apartment complex in Kansas, where 120 Somali Muslim immigrants live. The attack was reportedly set for November 9th after the election day of Trump. The number of neo-Confederate groups, organizations like the League of the South, which seek a second Southern succession, rose by 23% from 35 to 43 groups. But the number of Klan chapters fell 32% from 190 groups in 2015 to 130 in 2016. Because the Klan groups' numbers had expanded rapidly earlier, from 72 in 2014 to 190 in 2015, some constriction had been expected. In addition, much of that decrease was accounted for by the disappearance of the militant Knights of the Ku Klux Klan, once the 4th largest Klan group in America, and the sharp reduction in the number of chapters in the United White Knights of the Ku Klux Klan, which was the largest Klan group in 2015, and in the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. While the overall level of hate groups remained fairly steady, the period saw a noticeable drop in real-world extremist activities like rallies and violence. Outside of the wave of celebratory hate incidents that came mainly from Trump supporters in the election's immediate aftermath, even as online activity increased, these hardly seemed a reason to organize their own rallies when extremists could attend a Trump event filled with just as much anti-establishment vitriol as any extremist rally. So I just read that reel just to, give people an idea that hate groups are on the rise and they're rolling. They're getting bigger and bigger. You have any statement on that?
No, I would agree with you because as the economy gets worse and worse, the lower class of
Brother Rio, you need to come to the microphone.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you, brother.
Okay.
Hold on.
Okay.
423. We got a caller that unmuted himself. Brother 423. Tell me your name and go ahead and make your comment.
How y'all brothers doing this evening? My name's Jerry, and
Jerry?
I was wanting to get into this conversation that y'all was having. I wanted to let you get through the break first. My question, simple question: are we really assuming? Excuse me, I don't like to use that word. Are we really believing that hate groups are just now on the rise? I'm kind of under the impression that they never went nowhere. They splintered off into smaller groups because of white friction. Who's going to be the leader? What attributes are going to be in the forefront of the movement, or what have you? And I'm under the impression that that's kind of part of the reason they had this clash. On Tando Radio Show, I said many months ago that there was going to be a civil war in the United States amongst these white people, and it's starting to play out at a rapid pace. Is me being from the South, I see this all the time. You have the group kind of like in Virginia. You have the group that are very unrefined. Then you have the group that is refined. What I mean is you have people that are outright racist, and then you have the other people who are low key, and they are more consumed with having money and stealing other people's energy more so than disrespecting them to their face.
Okay.
And I believe that's what's happening. Everybody doesn't want to be seen as a racist. As let's talk about Donald Trump, for instance. All of the actions that he had way back from when he was doing the Central Park 5 all the way up to this birther movement that he done a couple of years ago. Had a lot of the actions that he participates in, it says that he's racist.
Mm-hmm.
But all of the other white people want to say that, well, a racist wouldn't let his daughter marry a Jew. Well, he's about money. Jewish people run the world. They have the money. If he's more concerned about the money, it doesn't stop his racist practices. It just means that he has to get with the program with certain people in order to make certain things happen. Mm-hmm. So that's the question that I pose to you. Is it that they're on the rise, or are they just beginning to show their faces again? We also have to remember that before they outlawed the KKK, they wore hoods then. It wasn't up until they started putting on the red coats instead of the white sheets that they started bearing their faces.
Yes, sir. Brother Jerry, I think what you're saying is absolutely on point, my brother. Me and my dad was having a conversation before I came on the show, and what you just said is exactly what he said, that the hate has never gone anywhere. It's always been there. And what I was trying to do was bring some information to kind of show that once they now start showing you statistics, once they start letting you know that they're there, that they're now starting to bring it to the forefront, that lets you know that the agenda is moving forward, because they are now exposing them. Because like you said, they have always been there. They just went underground. Like you said, they got, sophisticated ones who would much rather steal your energy, give you the appearance that everything is cool. You know what I'm saying? Meanwhile, you spinning your wheel like a hamster on the wheel. You have those ones who want to stay covert. And then, you have other ones who don't have the power, that want to yell and holler. But I agree with you, brother, 100%. The hate has always been there. These white folks ain't never changed. But continue with what you was bringing, Brother Jerry. Or Brother Rio, you got something?
I'm in agreement with you, Brother Jerry. But I think it speaks to the point of what Tommy was illustrating earlier about the puppeteers setting the stage, and they're controlling the environment to implement a plan that's coming down the pipe. So it's not a fact that because like I said earlier, our story is we've consistently dealt with, this hate, violence, and these atrocities from, since they stepped on the continent. It hasn't gone anywhere. Nowhere. At no time have they let up. But through their own media sources, they choose to highlight it or they choose to downplay it.
Right.
And I'm saying that the timing of that illustrates that it's an orchestrated plan, and they have an agenda that they want to accomplish. Because I'm pretty sure you know as well as I do that there are different forms of warfare. So, there is a civil war between them right now. It doesn't always equate to, my troops versus your troops. They have different political agendas. So, Trump's agenda is with one fashion, Hillary's was with another one, and then you got international agendas that are conflicting, that if they escalate high enough, then you have, espionage, and you have troops and different military maneuvers and campaigns and different things of that nature. But you have to remember that, they're just different forms of war, from embargoes to just, not giving your support to a particular nation. Or, let's talk about the Cold War between the United States and the Russia back in, I think it was the 50s, when there wasn't a physical enemy for us to fight. So what did they do? They created the era of the stage of conflict so that they could continue with their agenda, and they held their own people in fear so they could control them and get them to do what they wanted, was to give up more liberties and allow the federal government more freedom to enact things or legislations, policies on their behalf to protect them. And those are freedoms and liberties that we never got back. And that's on both sides, black and white.
Yes, sir.
But that's just an agenda that's going through and that's playing out. And this is just another play to that end. Go ahead, Brother Tom.
Yeah, and if you look back to the Civil War that was occurred, and now that when we look at all the information we have on it, Brother Jerry, from side to side, you see how that was planned, and that was the environment was created for that to occur. So, what do you feel on that, Brother Jerry? Jerry gone?
No, I'm sorry. I had to step in and talk to my wife real quick. I'm sorry about that. I had to put myself on mute.
That's okay. Yeah. So
as a matter of fact, look, brothers, I misguided my energy. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna call back from another 423 number, and I'm gonna call y'all right back because I am very much interested in this conversation tonight.
I feel you. Okay, yes, sir. We'll put you on mute. But Brother Real, like you said, it's just another play out of their playbook. It's just setting the atmosphere for what they want it to become, and those who are not intelligent enough, conscious enough, next boom, they fall right into it. My question to you, Brother Rio, the people who are down there marching, like say for instance, you see marches going on because of injustice. Would you say those are extremely conscious people out there marching? Some conscious people, unconscious, people who want to see a better America? Who are the people that actually go down and actually march when an injustice march? What do you think is the demographic of the people that go down and march when an injustice that has occurred?
I think you have all types of people. I think you have a conscious community. Let me say there are different levels of consciousness. Mm-hmm. There are people who are conscious and they just want to lend their energy and their support. You have people who are they're just followers, but they're contributing the best way that they know how. You also have people who are there to be a part of history, just to be able to say, I was there and I went. And then you have those who go in and they're the saboteurs, they're the spies, they're the distractions. They're the people who have ulterior motives or different agendas. But I don't have any issue with the sentiment of people wanting to rally. The only thing that I argue is, number one, the effectiveness throughout history, and is it time to contemplate a new strategy, as well as the so-called leaders who continue to organize these types of events with little to no success. So either we need to raise up some leadership that can show, improve, effective change, or it's time to change strategies. I mean, how many times are you going to beat a dead horse?
Mm-hmm. Right.
I mean,
when you go down to a march, I think the people who are wanting justice, they know for a fact that the police are not on their side. Would you agree with that?
I would agree, because just as Brother Jerry had brought up, the Ku Klux Klan and the white nationalists, they went from, they were created to police property, and in saying that statement, you have to ask, well, whose property are they protecting?
Mm-hmm.
And at that particular time when they created, the people who were viewed as property weren't entitled to that protection.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a group of people who are hired or set aside to protect property owned by people, the plantation owners,
Mm-hmm.
and people who are, in high status. And these people who put on hoods, they traded in those hoods for badges.
Yes, sir.
And they became law enforcement. And, you always see, written on cars and on, different propaganda, to serve and protect. Well, again, you got to ask, to serve and protect who?
Because from what I see, you policing the crap out of our neighborhoods. I don't see you protecting and serving nobody. I see you policing over here.
As well as we brought up, different laws that were enacted that are still on the books as to how the police can treat this property and have little to no recourse, even upon death.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So,
Yes.
I mean, those are just some of the things that would lead me to question, the effectiveness of protesting from a position where history has shown they view us as property. And Dred Scott, case decision, that we have no rights that a white man is bound to respect, which is still on the books.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they can say, they can talk about equality and all these kind of things and political statements, especially when they're running for office, all they want to. In the practice of it, we have consistently seen a disparity in the way that justice has been implemented through their system. So,
reading they deep don't add up. Hey, hold on for a sec, Brother Rio. Brother Jerry got unmuted himself. He wants to bring a little something. Go ahead, Brother Jerry. Okay, all right. We're going to have to let Brother Jerry do his thing tonight. Okay, my bad, Brother Rio.
Continue with your reading, brother.
What'd you say?
Oh, I was going to tell you to go ahead and continue with your reading, unless you got a comment.
Well, no, what I was hoping that you would do is that you and I also started having a conversation about UN troops being in this country.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Are you done with your information?
Yeah. I mean, I know. Yeah, the other information. Hey, no, go ahead. You good? I want to slide into that anyway. Go ahead. Let's talk about that. Because,
okay.
Tell you why. Let me tell you why. There's no need for me to move no forward because Brother Jerry and the conversation we just had was correct. I had a lot of statistics prepared and show basically the rise of these hate groups and how these white folks is doing this and doing that. This is, we already know. And like you said, it ain't really on the rise. It's just now coming out front. You know what I'm saying? Like we used to look at them pictures when a black man was being hanged and the white folks around there was standing around smiling and cheesing out in the open. They just coming back out into the open. That's all that is occurring. They just slid behind a wall, or a veil that was created by the civil rights era and coming out of Jim Crow. They slid behind a little veil because the brutality and the post-traumatic slave syndrome amongst our people was so heavy we couldn't understand it. They slid behind that veil and we smiled and cheesed and thought that this hate had gone away, but it really ain't gone nowhere. So ain't no need for me to kick no more statistics on that, brother.
Okay. Well, I just want to kind of plant the seed in people's mind that this is a stage, and the stage has been set for what I feel is a larger agenda, and it kind of removes the stigma of race, because in this particular agenda, it's not going to matter whether you're black or white or what have you, because the ultimate end game is just control and, in my opinion, population regulation. meaning, there's going to have to be a significant percentage of people eliminated, because I think too many people are becoming aware, and the people as a whole are starting to become more difficult to control. So in order for them to kind of reset and revamp the game, I think they want to have more control over less people, and there will be more resources to kind of go around. But this is an article from the Washington Post, and I wanted to find something very quickly from quote unquote a credible source or a widely known source, and it's dealing with a program that was called Jade Helm 15. There have been more than one operation of the Jade Helms. Jade Helm, Jade Helm, HELM. And in a nutshell, what these are supposedly are military operations that have taken place on American soil.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Washington Post, in this article, remember Jade Helm 15, the controversial military exercise? Well, it's over. The military exercise Jade Helm 15 generated enough conspiracy theories this year that it garnered mockery on late-night television, commentary from presidential candidates, and reaction from the Texas governor. The basic thrust of the concerns: the military was laying the groundwork for martial law. If not now, then sometime in the future. The exercise will end quietly on Tuesday, however. Carried out in parts of Texas, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Florida, it will conclude after 2 months of operations, says Suzanne Nagel, a spokeswoman for Army Special Operations Command, which oversaw it. At this time, we do not have any lessons learned to share since we have not yet conducted an after-action review of the exercise, but we do believe the exercise overall was a success, Nagel said in an email. As initially detailed in planning documents, the exercise was to include elite service members from 4 military branches. It eventually was reduced to include 200 Special Operation Forces and an additional 300 support personnel for most of the exercise, with about 700 members of the Army's 82nd Airborne Division traveling to Texas to train as part of Jade Helm for about 5 days in August. The story began garnering attention in March after planning slides for the exercise, likely prepared for government officials in Texas, began circulating online. They labeled Texas, Utah, and a section of Southern California as hostile territory, and New Mexico as uncertain territory, leaning hostile. The military has routinely held training exercises like Jade Helm in the past, but this one took on a life of its own before it even began. An informational meeting attended by citizens and local government officials in Bastrop, Texas, in April generated national attention after several people accused the federal government of preparing for a takeover. Texas Governor Greg Abbott ordered the Texas State Guard, a militia he oversees, to monitor the exercise. He said he did so to address the concerns of Texans, but was mocked by some critics for giving voice to the conspiracy theories. Notably, comedian Jon Stewart ripped Abbott by saying he was catering to Lone Star lunatics in a segment on Comedy Central's The Daily Show. Republican presidential candidates also weighed in. From the Pentagon and former Texas Governor Rick Perry, telling Texas residents they should trust the military. Gawker reported last week that the Texas State Guard saw an increase in recruiting after Abbott's decision. Guard officials called in a great opportunity. Gawker reported, citing emails obtained through the Freedom of Information Act. So what I'm taking from this is that some military exercises were executed on American soil, and that within these exercises, you had particular targets or states that were classified as being hostile or potentially hostile. Now, the rest of it seems to want to downplay those facts that were given.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that, Brother Tommy?
Well, did they say why, the reason for them being hostile, or why they classified them as hostile or not?
It was just a military exercise, and they said it was on slides, and those slides somehow made it online, and then other people were blowing it out of proportion.
Does it speak to who were the troops doing the exercise?
They say it was the Army. They said it was headed by the Army Special Forces.
Okay.
But again, this is the Washington Post, which is American publicized site, that has some kind of, I guess, recognition. I don't want to say credibility, but they're widely known, and I think they do have a wide circulation of papers. So I would guess that people value the information that they do put out.
Okay, understood.
Now, if the people want to look up a website called NERC.com, NERC.com, you're going to find some information on GridX, GRID, capital EX, GridX, and they have a series of GridXs. But basically, what GridX is, by its own website, is GridX. This one is labeled 4. Is the biannual exercise designed to stimulate a cyber physical attack on electric and other critical infrastructures across North America, and will involve electric utilities, regional, local, state, and provincial, and federal government agencies and law enforcement, first response, and intelligence community functions.
Mm-hmm.
Critical infrastructure, cross-sector partners, and supply chain stakeholder organizations. GridX 4, which took place on November 15th and 16th of this year, 2017, due to the sensitive nature of the scenario discussion, this exercise program is not open to the general public or the media. A public report will be available after the exercise concludes, and they have links to some GridX frequently asked questions and some fact sheets. So if people want to kind of get more information on that they can. The program history. NERC conducted its third sector-wide grid security exercise, Grid 3, in November of 2015. The first grid security exercise took place in November 2011. These geographically distributed exercises were designed to execute the electricity sector's crisis response to stimulated coordinated cybersecurity and physical security threats and indictments, to strengthen utilities' crisis response functions, and to provide input for lessons learned. The objectives: exercise, crisis response and recovery, improve communications, identify lessons learned, and engage senior leadership. And then it goes on to explain a little bit more about itself. And then they have past publications or public information that they did actually report. So that's just a little bit about the GridX program to kind of illustrate that there are military exercises that are going on for preparedness, be it terrorism acts on the grid, or whatever things that they may eventually encounter.
Yeah, and Brother Rio, people are or have observed troops from other countries, with this United Nations concept here in this country. So
yes, sir. Now
right.
that was exactly that's exactly where I'm going with that, because we know that in times of terrorism or under terrorist acts or martial law or anything of that nature, then it's not going to be the local enforcements that are going to be implementing these drills.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2008 and 2009, Obama orchestrated a plan to have UN troops on American soil for training purposes, and he also enacted an executive order, 13603,
mm-hmm.
which can be effectively viewed as peacetime martial law. The executive order was passed on, I think it was March 16th, 2012, and it's called the National Defense Resource Preparedness.
Mm-hmm.
And it pretty much allocates what governmental department is going to be over different layouts under martial law. So they're going to reallocate the resources, people being one of those resources,
mm-hmm.
As to what jobs that you can have, how you're going to work, when you're going to work, as well as the assets you are allowed to have. So they can confiscate any hoards, whether it be economic, artillery,
mm-hmm.
or food supplies.
Yeah, and remember we were talking the other day that they, especially when you're talking about being able to cut people off from economically hoarding, that they just signed into law that you cannot have $10,000, more than $10,000 on your possession without reporting it to the federal government.
Right. And if they find it, they're going to confiscate it anyway.
Right.
So,
go ahead.
And with that, Obama has also, let me see if I can pull that one up. Give me just a second, brother.
Yeah. Well, let me.
Mm-hmm. Obama secures 40,000 more UN troops for peacekeeping efforts. U.S. President Barack Obama has successfully petitioned more than 50 countries to provide 40,000 additional peacekeeping forces to quell ongoing conflict across the globe. Unveiled at the sidelines of the UN General Assembly on Monday, the deployment marks a significant surge in the UN peacekeeping effort. Collectively, countries ranging from China to Colombia have pledged troops. The UN relies on volunteer forces from its member states to sustain its peacekeeping initiatives. A fact Obama reminded his fellow global leaders on Monday, AFP reported. We know that peace operations are not the solution to every problem, Obama said at the summit, but they do remain one of the world's most important tools to address armed conflict. So,
you can definitely see how their plan is in place and they're moving, and especially by this organization, the UN. I was watching a video the other week how basically the United States is being delivered over to the United Nations, and it was already a part of a secret pact, that was created by the Rockefellers, because doesn't the building that the United Nations is in is located on the piece of land owned by the Rockefellers? That's the impression that I'm under. So, especially because let's say, for instance, you're having an issue in this country, and the reason why you could see why they would have a higher thought and have troops from outside of the country, like UN troops, come in, because a lot of the local police, a lot of the people who are within the military ranks in certain positions are really militia people who are feeling a certain way about the government anyway.
Well, what I say about that?
Now you see the importance of having UN troops over here. Go ahead.
What I say about that, brother, is that plans are in place for lack of a better term, a one world government.
Mm-hmm.
So the UN is going to be the police of the nation, of the globe, I should say.
Yeah.
So you're going to have an exchange of soldiers or military forces, because that is going to pretty much curtail any kind of concerns about local militia having to fire on their own people, or people that they may encounter that they know.
Right.
If you bring in a foreign army, you're not going to have that problem, because there's going to be a language barrier, as well as it's just not going to be the same kind of connection available between the two peoples and the agendas that need to get done. Yeah. So it enforces and it strengthens the concept of being governed by one organization and its policy being global.
Yeah.
On July 21st, on July 1st, 2016, Obama also signed into executive order something that's called the United States Policy on Pre- and Post-Strike Measures to Address Civilian Casualties in U.S. Operations Involving U.S. Forces. And the people can Google that. July 21st executive order signed by Obama. And they can read the particulars of that. But in a nutshell, it changed, it's kind of changing the rules of engagements military have regarding civilians. So the policies of how the military is going to be dealing with the civilians or civilian populations is changing. Yeah. And it's not changing in our favor. So I would advise the family to go ahead and kind of look at that and peruse that. And,
brother, let me
we might delve into that a little bit more. But I just wanted the family to be aware of that the stage is set for martial law and for organizations and different troops, the UN being specific, bringing in troops from such as Russia and China, which there are numerous reports on the internet. People can Google that readily, of seeing training exercises with these foreign militia on U.S. soil. And this is also taking place in Canada and also in Mexico, too. So it's not exclusive to the United States. But, right. I believe that the rise of these militias, these white militias, is going to be another justification as to why these UN forces are going to be used. Because to me, when I was reading that article, it seemed to have a particular slant that local law enforcement really aren't going to be prepared to handle this level of clashes in the future.
And you won't have to deal with the conflicting loyalty, like you pointed out, of the local troops. But also, Brother Rio, let me point out to what you were talking about. Another point on this executive order by the president. It was issued on July 1st in 2016, and it's specifically called the United States Policy on Pre- and Post-Strike Measures to Address Civilian Casualties in U.S. Operations Involving the Use of Force. So, but one Correct. Thing, right, but one thing specifically, when they are supporting, what he said is they are supporting a set of principles that give a green light for the United Nations peacekeeping troops and police to use force to protect civilians in armed conflict. So they're giving the authority to these United Nations soldiers to forcefully do things to citizens, so-called citizens of this nation. You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah, and Brother Scotty may have more information on this because I know he's ex-military. But I also ran across some evidence that was saying that when these maneuvers or drills are being run, such as in Chicago, California, New York, and large population areas. People are seeing exercises being done. So you might see UN kind of tanks being drove around, and when the operations are over, the equipment is not being moved. The equipment stays there. So, I don't see the military leaving behind equipment they don't have a plan for, using in the future, as well as the United States engages in more global conflicts overseas. That's where our military is being deployed. Mm-hmm. So, in the midst of that deployment, where more and more forces are going to have to be allocated depending on the agenda of the United States. If civil unrest breaks out within the borders of what we now know as the United States, they're not going to leave themselves defenseless, and by them I mean the powers that be, or the government, or the people who are in positions of power and government. So, to me, that only strengthens the concept of UN forces or UN troops coming in to curtail any kind of uprising, be it from the white militia or any melanated disruption that they feel needs addressing.
Yeah, and I feel you on that, and because this particular executive order was signed with 28 other different countries. So you basically, with the United States, you have the 29 countries, and when they signed this agreement, it requires that these peacekeepers from these other countries, that they are required to act in cases where they say civilians are in danger. That is a part of the pledges that they take. So, because the 29 countries all make 18 pledges, and these 18 pledges are called, Kigali principles. And one is they have to act. So if there's some type of terrorist event or some type of activity or anything that goes on here, and they're ready to move forward with their plan, these peacekeepers, so to speak, are required to come in here and act and do whatever is expected of them, even with force, on the American citizens. So,
and
go ahead.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe that they are trying to label the people who are advocates for Black Lives Matter. I think they're trying to saddle them with the label of some particular kind of terrorism. Mm-hmm. So, we really have to keep ourselves abreast of these executive orders. And another point is that these executive orders, if the Constitution was in play, first and foremost, executive orders would only come into play during wartime efforts anyway. So the fact that executive orders are coming through on a regular basis, should send up some red flags. But executive orders, they still would have to go through the three houses. But that doesn't seem to be the case as of late. These executive orders are being mandated, and they're being mandated effective immediately. So when Donald Trump is saying that, he's going to throw out, the feds on Chicago, and I am of the opinion that by feds, he's referring to that agreement that you're speaking of between the different nations, because I do believe that they created another governmental department for police forces, United States Federal Police Force, that is going to encompass the foreign troops or foreign entities. So you're going to start seeing different drills and different exercises that are going to be headed by these foreign troopers. So that's going to be on the rise. And
show you before they do it.
Right, exactly. And the people also may want to look up. I haven't had a chance to research this yet, but the 2014 Copenhagen Agreement, and then I ran across someone that was saying that there was also a 2014 Copenhagen Treaty, but it was up on WhiteHouse.gov for like a day, but they immediately took it down. And if you didn't get a copy of it, or if you weren't privy to downloading that information, then you are not going to be able to find that, because it had some revealing information on that. So I'm gonna try to see if I can chase that down, or if that's just someone selling some wolf tickets. But
okay, well,
if anybody knows about that, we'd love to get a hold of that information. Go ahead, Brother Tommy.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of give a little bit of understanding of these 18 principles that these 29 nations agree to by just taking a look at a couple of them. Is that cool with you?
Oh, yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, principle number 7. And remember, there's 18 pledges that they make, each nation. 7, to avoid undue delay in protecting civilians by investing our contingent commander with the authority to use force to protect civilians in urgent situations without the need to further consultations with capital. What does that mean? So who is the contingent commander? Who gives him the authority?
I would think that would be the UN. And the contingent commander is going to be whatever foreign entity is placed in a position to run that operation. But I honestly haven't done enough research in that area to speak on that articulately. And I'm wondering if Brother Scotty has heard anything along those lines. He doesn't have to chime in if he doesn't feel like it, but it would just be worthwhile if anybody with military experience, kind of has some kind of insight as to that, as we, delve to the bottom of that. But the information is out there, and it's something we definitely gonna have to address.
Yeah.
So why we find it important, and we need to bring it to the people now, so that, again, we can start strategically planning and understanding what we're up against. Somebody's got their hand up in the queue. From the 4-3 code. Caller, do you have a statement?
Yeah. I'm sorry. This is Jerry again. I'm not really sure what's going on with my phone. It's been happening the last couple of days. I've just been getting cut off, especially during conversations like this. So, but that's my problem. Like I said, I'm really enjoying you, brothers. I believe it was Brother Tommy that said that you're only supposed to be able to execute executive orders during wartime.
That was Brother Rio.
Well, right now, excuse me?
That was Brother Rio.
Brother Rio, I'm sorry. Right now, we are actually, most people don't even pay attention to this, but we are actively a part of three wars. You have the war on ISIS or ISIL, the Afghan war, and the Northwest Pakistani war. We are a part of those right now. So we are in wartime as we speak. Have been so since 2005. A few wars in between them that done started and stopped, but we are currently still within these wars. So that's why these executive orders get to just slide through with no interruption, because it's actually a part of the Constitution. Now, the Constitution doesn't mean anything for us. I know one of you referenced the Dred Scott case, which means that we have no authority whatsoever. None of our rights are respected. So that's one of the things that we need to talk about when we're, for those of you who tweet or are very active on Facebook. We know that the president the current president is very active on these particular social media outlets. You know what I'm saying? Put that out there to them. You can't ignore everybody. But y'all have been dropping a lot of information. I didn't even realize that I had got cut off, and I had went through a whole little segment apparently by myself. But when we doing these things, and I don't know if y'all heard me or not, but my question earlier was these white people are going through a civil war, as I stated, but the one thing that they have that we tend not to have is this tunnel vision. No matter what problems they have amongst each other, they group up, put those little problems to the side, and handle the business at hand. And my question to you was, do you see us as a people, and I know it's not going to be everybody, but do you see us as a people getting together and being able to take on that same type of mentality to get what we need to get done?
I definitely
I didn't hang up on me this time.
I definitely do. It's just a period of time. Everything is done in due timing. There are many things that are influencing what is going on the earth in terms of the alignment of the celestial bodies and the type of energies that are governing and reigning on the planet. So it's definitely going to come back around, because that is the nature of the ebb and flow. It's just a matter of time, Brother Jerry. It's just, will we be able to protect ourselves and do what we have to do until the giant is reawakened, and until the way in which we come descends back on us. We have that Sankofa moment and return back to that which we come. So yeah, it's going to happen, because the aspect of nature is cyclical. Things stand strong and shine in brilliance for a very long time, and then eventually the cycle of life and death that we are on this planet, the ebb and flow has to occur. So it's just a matter of time, in my opinion. What you think, Brother Rio?
Well, Brother Jerry, I wanted to first acknowledge what you were saying about the many different military campaigns we currently have going on. And I wanted to also add that if you notice, every president has some type of campaign to where they declare war, if not on a different country or corporation company, because they never really declare war anymore. They haven't declared war. Vietnam isn't classified as a war because Congress didn't go through the steps to declare it a war, and they haven't done so in all the campaigns, military campaigns after that. But what they do declare war on is, for example, Bush's war on education. There's been a war on poverty. There's always a war declaration on something, and that is one way that they continue to enact those wartime powers, so that they can, continue to write those executive orders.
Brother Rio.
Also, yes, sir.
Oh, I was going to let you know that we had a caller on the board now, and seeing if he was ready to go to the caller. Go ahead. I didn't want to cut you off.
I was just going to say that I'm in agreement with you as to your comments, as everything is a cycle, and the energy coming into the planet is shifting, and that's why we are seeing different campaigns being ramped up and agendas being run today. And I'm just be blunt. Everybody's not going to make it. We are entering a new era where, as Brother Tommy alluded to, new energy is going to be coming into the planet. And along with that new energy is going to have to be a new way of thinking. And the people who are not able to think differently, they're going to have to transition. I mean, to put it bluntly, it's just going to be a transition of people who who aren't willing to do the things necessary to raise their vibration, as well as there's going to be some people who, when it's your time, it's your time. You choose how you want to live. And if you're going to stand on your principles, sometimes the only way to stand on your principles is to, welcome that transition.
Yes, sir.
And to, whether than sacrificing your principles, or as we've been kicking on, you want to keep your seven souls intact so that you can vibrate at your highest frequency and go on to the next assignment, as opposed to being trapped here and going through all this madness all over again. So to me, the ultimate goal is to continue to focus on our spirituality and working together so that, we treat each other with some level of civilness, love, and respect, so that we at least are accountable to each other. We try to come together to put forth our own self-determination and, let the chips fall where they may. Go ahead, Brother Tommy. You can bring the caller to the table. That's all I had to say upon that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I feel you, brother. I was floating with you on that one. Caller 678, please give us your name and your question.
Chuma. My name is Chuma.
Brother, what's going on, man?
Not too much. I was listening to the show. I actually got in about 9 o'clock to the show, so I just been kind of listening, and I just kind of been taking notes. I don't really have any questions.
Oh, okay.
I just, more than anything, I just kind of want to make reference to some of the points you guys made. Mainly, you made reference to the military action, under executive orders. The way that these Europeans use their own laws and different things against us, or even in their own benefits. These are even laws that they don't respect themselves, and laws that have been weaved into our society that been violated. They don't even honor. And I just making light to. Hello?
Yeah, we got you.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I'm making reference to the infiltration by the counterintelligence program. A lot of people don't understand that the counterintelligence program has been a military action that's been ongoing since 1943. That was a program that was designed by J. Edgar Hoover in 1943. And even back in 1943, these Europeans were factoring and calculating the numbers of how many African people were on the planet by the year 2017 and 18 and 19, even back in 1943. So that was a military action that had took place and started, there then, and it's been played out all the way up until now, and it's playing out through religion, politics, music, drugs, all the different ways that they've been using it from all the way in our neighborhoods in 1943 up until now has been a military action. And so the way that they get you to look at military, and the term military is a trick too, because a lot of times the attack is already being done and has been being done for eons, and we don't know it. We haven't been seeing it because we're so used to living amongst it. I know you guys don't have much time on your program. There's another point. The brother called in, made a pretty good point. He said that Europeans, regardless, they always do come together. They somehow seem to find a way to collectively come together and handle their business. And I just wanted to just make reference to that. I think he made a real positive point with that, whoever that brother was. And I think that collectivity is based on collective ideology that they share. Not only that, their collective fear that they have of what they've always felt and what they always feared is a black planet. I feel like they know it, what's coming, and they have to do something drastic to be able to counteract it. They're not going to be able to, but they have to feel like they have to do something drastic to counteract it. Brother Rio, you're right. It's a mindset. The brothers that don't understand what's really going on, that we have to come together collectively to be able to make it and survive, to be holistic and be truthful and honest with one another, and to be able to identify those that aren't. That's going to be germane to survival these days, regardless of who it is. We have to be able to know that the people that we're collective with, or say that we say we're collective with, that is true and it's real, because that's going to be germane. There's going to be a lot of foolery and there's going to be a lot of trickery when things get rough. So you're going to have to really be mindful of what's going on. I appreciate what y'all doing down there, and I'm definitely going to tune in at 8:00 next Monday.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, brother Chuma. Appreciate the call. Yes, sir, brother. I was feeling everything you said. You spoke it so eloquently. I definitely
very well stated.
Touch with the frequency. Go ahead, brother Rio.
Oh, I was just saying it was well stated. It was well stated, and I think those are a pretty good summary of what we talked about today. So no, we didn't get to the 7 souls of man, the follow-up, but I believe that this was a very powerful and important topic, and it's something that is going to have to be addressed if we plan or strategize together in moving forward. So I think it was a show well spent, and it was good energy. Good comments, good energy.
Great energy, and we'll definitely be on live Monday, next Monday at 8:00, same time. We're not definitely sure yet what the topic was going to be, but until then, I would definitely would think that would be best if everyone can go with inside themselves, get into a place where it's quiet, to where there's silence, to where you can go with inside yourself and deal with the issues with inside oneself that one needs to deal with. And then that way, once we deal with those issues on the inside, we become the person we need to be assistive and helpful to all those around us on the outside. Much love, much respect. Signing out on Brother Tommy. Go ahead, Rio.
I echo the same sentiments. We're running short on time, so I wish the family love, peace, and productive week. And we'll see you guys here next week, Monday, 8:00 to 10:00. We'll be here. Come join us. Peace.
You are tuned in to the Black Talk Radio Network. For podcasts and live program scheduling, visit us on the web at blacktalkradionetwork.com. The views and opinions